The desert stretched forever, a sheet of ochre dust trembling under a sky bruised violet by twin suns. Alex hated deserts. They got into everything: filters, coolant valves, even his socks. His hauler sat groaning 100 meters behind him, coughing out steam like an old smoker with lung problems, and he was in the middle of kicking at a rock to relieve his frustration when something unusual caught his eye. At first, he thought it was another piece of wreckage, half buried in sand. The planet was littered with junk: broken drones, gutted pods, entire chunks of hull plating tossed here by the storms. But this scrap of movement was different. It twitched. It breathed. It groaned in a distinctly alive kind of way. He squinted, brushing sweat from his forehead, and trudged closer. When the figure rolled over, his boots nearly rooted into the sand. A woman. Or at least, mostly. Her limbs were long and wiry, her face surprisingly human, but her ears stretched back in elegant arcs, catching the dying light like silver blades. Her skin shimmered faintly, veins glimmering as if someone had traced starlight beneath the surface. She tried to push herself up, muttered something in a voice like glass breaking underwater, and collapsed back down. "Right," Alex muttered, crouching beside her. "Either I'm hallucinating from dehydration, or I just found a space elf. And if it's dehydration, this is the weirdest mirage I've ever seen." Her eyelids fluttered. She looked at him with eyes that glowed faintly blue, like twin reactor cores dimmed to standby. Alex swallowed. He was used to busted thrusters and fried circuit boards, not mysterious, glowing-eyed women with extra ear real estate. He did the only thing his conscience allowed. He hooked his arms under her shoulders and dragged her toward the hauler. She was lighter than she looked, almost unnervingly so, like her bones were hollow. She coughed once, twice, then made a sound that suspiciously resembled a laugh. Alex frowned down at her. "Glad you're enjoying this. Personally, I'd give the service 3 stars at best." Inside the hauler, things weren't much better. The med kit had long since been stripped of anything useful, his own fault for patching up fuel leaks with sterile bandages when duct tape had run out, but he improvised. He wrapped her arm in clean cloth, smeared antiseptic gel where he guessed wounds might be, and prayed her biology wasn't allergic to human medicine. She watched him with a tilted head, amused, as if this clumsy ritual was entertainment. Finally, she said something that sounded like, "Grath tshi." 2 eyes. Alex blinked. "Excuse me? 2 eyes? That's, okay, technically accurate, but kind of rude. You've got 2 eyes too, unless I'm missing some hidden spares." She tried again, slower, savoring the syllables like she was testing the flavor of a new fruit. 2 eyes. Great. I've been named by the alien woman who just tried to eat sand. Guess that's my life now. The next few hours were chaos disguised as caretaking. She insisted on exploring every corner of the hauler, even while barely strong enough to stand. She pulled wires out of panels, sniffed at coolant tubes, and attempted to chew one of his boots, mistaking it for food. When Alex snatched it away, she pouted like a scolded child. "That's leather," he said, exasperated. "Cow skin. You don't want that." She tilted her head. "Cow, delicious." "No. Cow, footwear. I mean, sometimes cow is delicious, but only after seasoning, grilling, and not wrapping it around my toes for 3 weeks." Her laughter bubbled out like a stream of bells, startling in its brightness. It filled the cramped cabin, making the failing system seem almost alive again. Alex rubbed his face and sighed. By the time night fell, though night was relative when the smaller sun simply ducked behind the horizon while the larger one refused to leave, she had curled up in the overhead storage compartment, limbs tucked neatly, ears folding back like wings. Alex glanced up at her, shook his head, and muttered, "I've officially adopted a space cat. Great. I always wanted responsibility without warning." He sat at the console, tapping at the diagnostics. The hauler's core was still sputtering, the comms array fried beyond repair, and food supplies running low. Now he had another mouth to feed. The thought should have tightened the coil of worry in his chest, but instead he found himself staring at the glow of her veins, faint even in sleep, and wondering what kind of trouble he had just dragged into his already messy life. When the cabin lights flickered and died for the third time, he groaned aloud. Perfect. Ship's dying, I'm stranded, and now I'm babysitting a cosmic elf with a sense of humor. If anyone's listening, feel free to explain how this is part of the grand plan. No one answered, of course. Just the faint, steady breathing from above, and the hum of systems holding on by sheer stubbornness. Alex leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and let exhaustion blur the lines between dread and reluctant amusement. Somewhere in that uneasy twilight, he realized, whatever she was, whatever she wanted, his life had just stopped being simple, and he wasn't entirely sure he minded. Morning, if that's what you could call it when two suns refused to agree on when to rise, came with a thud. Alex startled awake to the sound of something clattering against the deck plates. He stumbled from the pilot's chair, hair sticking in all directions, to find Lyra crouched over his ration locker like a raccoon at a midnight buffet. "Hey! That's supposed to last me 2 weeks," he barked. She looked up guiltily, a silver packet in her hand. She jabbed a finger at the bold print, protein slurry, chicken flavor. Her luminous eyes narrowed as though she were deciphering ancient runes. She tore it open with her teeth before Alex could intervene and gulped down the contents. Then she gagged so violently he thought she was going to eject her soul. "Exactly," Alex said, snatching the half-empty packet. "Welcome to human cuisine. Our species has perfected the art of making food that tastes like regret." Lyra coughed, wiped her mouth, then smiled faintly. "Regret, crunchy. It's not supposed to be crunchy." She gave a mischievous laugh, the same one she'd used last night when he'd caught her curled in the overhead storage like a smug bat. Alex groaned, realizing 2 things. 1, she was recovering fast, and 2, he had just lost control of his ship to a long-eared alien kleptomaniac with no respect for rationing. She proved that immediately by darting toward the console and jabbing her glowing fingers into the power core interface. Sparks flew, systems coughed back to life, and the cabin filled with the gentle thrum of machinery that hadn't worked in weeks. Alex froze. "Wait. Did you just fix my fusion core, by poking it?" Lyra tilted her head, ears twitching like antennae. "Broken. Not broken. Simple. Simple. Lady, I've been trying to patch that thing with chewing gum and prayer." "Prayer weak tool." Alex slapped a hand over his face. "Great. Not only do I have an alien stowaway, she's also judging my religion now." Still, he couldn't deny the results. His console lights gleamed steady green for the first time in months. Life support cycled with a reassuring hum. Even the coffee synthesizer gurgled awake, though it promptly spat a foul-smelling liquid that looked like it had been filtered through engine grease. Lyra leaned over the mug curiously. He waved her off. "No. That's not for you. That's for people who've given up on happiness but still want to feel alive." Her ears perked. "Alive. Good." She reached for the mug anyway. He yanked it back, sloshing black sludge onto his shirt. Lyra's laughter rang through the cabin again. Alex sighed, but he couldn't help grinning at her delight. Hours slipped by in that strange new rhythm. She explored every inch of the hauler with the relentless curiosity of a child crossed with a scientist. She tugged open panels, sniffed at wiring bundles, and discovered that slapping the comms unit made it spark like fireworks. Alex followed in her wake, cleaning up disasters and muttering under his breath. At one point she held up his toolbox triumphantly and announced, "Treasure chest." "That's not treasure. That's 30 years of hard-earned cursing in stripped bolts." "Treasure chest," she repeated, stuffing half the contents into the pockets of her borrowed flight jacket. By midday, the ship was a mess of tools, food packets, and one suspiciously glowing coolant hose that she claimed was safe enough. Alex collapsed into the pilot's chair, head in his hands. You are chaos incarnate. Cosmic chaos with ears. Lyra leaned over him, grinning with too many teeth for comfort. Chaos good? Chaos, depends on the day. For the first time, he noticed the shadows in her expression. When she thought he wasn't looking, her smile faltered. She touched her ears as though checking they were still there. She whispered words he couldn't catch, syllables sliding through the air like smoke. The laughter dimmed, replaced by something heavier, something that made Alex shift uncomfortably. You've been through hell, haven't you? He said softly. She didn't answer, but her hand found his arm briefly, warm and trembling. Then, just as quickly, she pulled back and smirked again. Two eyes tired. Sleep. I'm not tired. He yawned. Sleep, she insisted, poking his forehead with one glowing finger. Fine. But no wrecking the ship while I nap. That includes eating any more of my boots. She giggled, ears flicking playfully. Boots, crunchy. When Alex finally dozed off in the chair, he dreamed of blue eyes glowing like reactor cores, of long ears catching starlight, and of laughter echoing through the void. Somewhere in the dream, alarms wailed, a harsh, real sound that dragged him awake. The radar screamed with proximity alerts. He scrambled to the console, blinking at the readings. Dozens of signatures entering orbit. Sleek, crystalline ships sliding into formation like blades in the sky. Lyra stood at his side, her laughter gone, her expression suddenly sharp and unreadable. Her whisper was almost drowned out by the alarm. My people. The radar's wail refused to stop, and Alex slammed the mute button so hard he nearly dented the console. The silence that followed was somehow worse, broken only by the faint hum of the hauler's patched-up core and Lyra's steady breathing beside him. She didn't look afraid, which should have reassured him, but instead her calmness curled around his gut like ice. Your people. Alex repeated, voice cracking like a boy at his first karaoke night. As in friendly, thanks for saving me, here's a fruit basket, or as in, how dare you touch our princess, prepare to be vaporized. Lyra tilted her head, as though weighing the options. Yes. Yes. That's not an answer, that's both answers. She didn't blink, which Alex was starting to realize was a habit of hers when she wanted to keep him guessing. Outside, the sky lit up with descending ships, sleek crystalline vessels that caught the sun's light and refracted it across the horizon. They looked less like machines and more like living shards of glass deciding to perform a military parade. Alex's instinct was to run, but the hauler wouldn't survive a sprint against those things. His second instinct was to hide, but the desert had all the cover of a pancake. So he did the only thing left, leaned back in his chair and muttered, well, if this is the end, I'm demanding they let me haunt your overhead compartment. Lyra's lips twitched, but she kept her gaze locked on the ships. Not end. Beginning. That sounds like something villains say right before monologuing me into the grave. The lead vessel descended, sand blasting across the hauler's hull. The ship's ramp extended with liquid grace, and figures emerged, tall, elegant, each with those same elongated ears and luminous veins. They moved in synchronized formation, a choreography of intimidation. Alex swallowed and tried to straighten his jacket, realizing too late that it smelled faintly of burned coffee and boot leather. The leader approached, armor catching the light like molten glass. Her ears were longer, sharper, as if evolved specifically to make Alex feel short and unimpressive. She studied him for a long moment, then turned her gaze to Lyra. Foundling returns, she said in near-perfect common, her voice smooth but edged. And she drags behind her, this. Alex raised a hand weakly. Hi. Human. Mechanic. Professional disaster survivor. The leader's eyes narrowed. Lyra stepped between them, ears flicking defiantly. He saved me. The words hung heavy. The assembled women murmured in their own language, a ripple of voices like wind through glass chimes. Some looked skeptical. Others tilted their heads as if reassessing him. The leader lifted her chin. Saved, or stole? Whoa, Alex said quickly, hands up. I'm many things, terrible cook, bad with taxes, occasional liar about gym attendance, but thief of people. Not on the list. A few of the warriors smirked. The leader didn't. She circled him once, as though inspecting a strange animal brought into camp. Her armor whispered with every step. He is soft, she declared. Excuse me, I am rugged. Stubbly. Gritty. Sometimes I even forget to shave for days at a time. Lyra stifled a laugh. The leader's gaze softened almost imperceptibly at the sound. She turned back to her people and spoke in their tongue, a decision sparking debate among the tribe. Hands gestured, ears twitched, voices clashed. Alex caught only fragments of translated words: honor, debt, risk. Finally, the leader faced him again. You will come with us. Alex blinked. That's it? No asking. No waivers to sign. You just abduct me politely. Abduct, she repeated, testing the word. Yes. Abduct. Well, at least you're honest kidnappers. Before he could protest further, two warriors flanked him. They weren't rough, but their silent presence made resistance seem about as useful as arguing with gravity. Lyra touched his arm briefly, her expression unreadable but her grip grounding. The crystalline ship swallowed them all, the interior alive with faint pulses of light that moved like veins in the walls. Alex craned his neck, muttering, "Great. It's like walking inside a glow stick. Hope no one trips and breaks it." The warriors ignored him. Lyra, however, giggled softly. As the ship rose, the desert shrank beneath them, his hauler looking like a forgotten toy. Alex felt a pang of loss. He'd cursed that bucket of bolts daily, but it had been his. Now he was at the mercy of long-eared space Amazons with unclear intentions. He leaned toward Lyra and whispered, "If they cook as bad as my ration packs, I'm jumping out the airlock." Her ears twitched, amusement flickering across her features. No airlock. They keep you. That's supposed to be comforting. When the vessel docked with the fleet's mothership, Alex's jaw nearly hit the floor. The scale of it was impossible, a sprawling construct of interlocking crystal towers, orbiting panels that drank starlight, and engines glowing like captured suns. The docking bay swallowed their ship whole, rows of similar vessels already resting like shards of glass stuck in the world's fanciest jewelry box. As the ramp lowered, the leader gestured for him to follow. You will face the council. Alex winced. Council? Oh, good. I love public speaking. Especially when the audience has spears. Lyra squeezed his arm again, murmuring, "Speak truth." Yeah, truth. That'll go over well. Hi, I'm Alex, I fix vending machines, and now I'm responsible for your wayward relative. Totally inspiring. She smirked, her blue eyes glinting. Better than lies. He groaned as they stepped into the heart of the alien stronghold, the hum of energy coursing through the walls like a living heartbeat. Somewhere deep inside, Alex realized he'd crossed a line he could never uncross. He wasn't just a rescuer anymore, he was about to become a participant in something far larger, and probably far more dangerous, than he had ever signed up for. And, judging by the smirks of the warriors trailing behind him, his sarcastic commentary was only making them like him more. Alex had seen plenty of waiting rooms in his life, dentists, job interviews, the Department of Interplanetary Transit, but none of them compared to sitting in the center of a chamber carved from living crystal while 20 long-eared women in shimmering armor stared him down like he was a bug caught in a food processor. The council chamber pulsed faintly with inner light, veins of blue crawling up the walls like frozen lightning. The women sat in a perfect semicircle, their ears catching the glow like blades poised for use. In the middle stood Alex, sweaty jacket, grease-stained shirt, and a grin that came less from confidence and more from panic. "Right," he muttered. "No pressure. Just an alien high court deciding if I get turned into stardust or offered tea." One of the counselors leaned forward, her voice clipped. "You took Lyra." "I didn't take her," Alex said quickly. "She collapsed in a desert. I dragged her inside my hauler, patched her up, fed her. Okay, fine, I fed her something I regret feeding myself, but still. Rescuing, not kidnapping." Another counselor narrowed her eyes. "Why?" Alex hesitated. "Why?" That was the kind of question philosophers lost sleep over. He shrugged. "Because she was dying. And I had bandages." And apparently a really bad sense of self-preservation. A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but surprised, like they hadn't expected honesty to sound funny. The leader of the tribe, the one with the sharpest ears and sharper eyes, raised a hand to silence them. "You acted with instinct. Yet instinct leads to war as easily as to mercy. How do we know your motives were pure?" "My motives?" Alex spread his hands. "Look, if I wanted power, I wouldn't be piloting a rust bucket hauler. If I wanted wealth, I wouldn't be eating protein slop that tastes like flavored despair. And if I wanted leverage against a fleet of shiny crystal warships, I wouldn't. Because I enjoy not being vaporized." Even Lyra laughed at that, covering her mouth with one hand as her ears twitched in amusement. The leader's lips curved faintly before flattening again. The counselors began to argue in their own tongue, words flowing like chimes in a storm. Alex caught Lyra translating under her breath, phrases slipping through: debt, danger, outsider. He swallowed, his grin cracking. Finally, one counselor spoke directly to him. "You are human. Fragile. Short-lived. What place have you among us?" Alex straightened, forcing his voice not to shake. "None. I don't have a place. But your friend," he pointed at Lyra, "was dying, and I couldn't ignore that. If that makes me foolish, then fine. I'm the galaxy's biggest fool. But I'd rather be a fool who tried than someone who walked away." The silence that followed was heavy, almost holy. Then, to his horror, the leader stood and drew her weapon. It wasn't quite a sword, not quite a spear, but a glowing shard of crystal that hummed like a reactor. She stepped toward him. Alex's survival instincts screamed. Hey, I'm all for dramatic gestures, but maybe we could skip the part where you skewer me in front of an audience. Just a thought." She halted, the blade inches from his chest. "You speak with honesty. But honesty must be proven." Alex raised his brows. "Proven? You want receipts? I didn't exactly get a hero's invoice when I dragged her through the sand." "Trial," she said simply. "Of course," Alex muttered. "Every time I try to help someone, I end up on trial. Story of my life." The council hummed in approval, ears twitching in unison. Lyra stepped forward, alarmed. "He is not trained. He cannot." "He must," the leader cut in. Alex groaned. "Let me guess. This trial involves combat, doesn't it? Some kind of test where I fight an alien beast the size of a house while armed with a spoon." One counselor smirked. "Close. Not funny," Alex said. "Very funny," Lyra whispered, grinning despite her worry. Before he could protest further, a panel in the chamber floor opened, revealing a platform that rose like an elevator. It carried a sleek drone into view, floating, crystalline, bristling with energy emitters. Its single glowing eye locked onto him, scanning. "Trial by endurance," the leader announced. "Survive against the Sentinel until the song ends." Alex blinked. "Song? What song?" The walls hummed. A low vibration, almost melodic, filled the chamber. The sentinel activated, buzzing with energy, and Alex felt his knees go weak. "Okay," he muttered. "This is fine. Totally fine. I've survived malfunctioning reactors, asteroid showers, and one very angry customs officer. How bad can a singing death drone be?" Lyra called out, "Two Eyes, don't let it touch you." The drone lunged. Alex yelped, dove to the side, and landed flat on his face. The council burst into laughter. He scrambled up, panting. "Glad I can provide entertainment while fighting for my life." The sentinel fired a beam. Alex ducked behind a crystal pillar, the beam slicing the air where his head had been. His heart hammered. The song rose in pitch, the drone matching it with every move. Desperate, he grabbed the only weapon at hand, a wrench that had fallen from his pocket. He brandished it at the sentinel. "Back off. I've tightened bolts scarier than you." The drone hesitated, scanning the wrench as though trying to classify it. Alex took advantage, hurling the tool at its eye. It struck with a clang, not enough to destroy but enough to stagger. The council erupted in shouts, some cheering, some laughing harder than ever. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold on. The song is almost done." Alex ducked another blast, rolling clumsily across the floor, sweat stinging his eyes. The hum of the chamber reached a crescendo, and then, silence. The sentinel froze. Its eye dimmed. The trial was over. Alex lay on his back, gasping. "I survived, with a wrench. Somebody please write that on my tombstone." The counselors murmured, impressed despite themselves. The leader lowered her weapon and studied him anew. Perhaps, not so soft after all. Alex groaned, raising one finger. Still soft. Very soft. But alive. Lyra laughed, relief breaking through her worry, and for the first time Alex thought he saw pride in her eyes. The celebration began almost before Alex had caught his breath. One moment he was still lying flat on the chamber floor, wheezing like an old air pump, and the next he was being pulled upright by warriors who clapped him on the back so hard he wondered if they were trying to reset his spine. The leader raised her crystalline weapon and declared, "The human endures." Alex blinked. "That's the official verdict? Not hero, not champion, just, endures. That sounds like a polite way of calling me stubborn." "Stubborn is strength," one counselor replied. "Then I'm basically the galaxy's strongest man," Alex muttered. The mood shifted. Where suspicion once lingered, curiosity now bloomed. Warriors who had glared at him earlier now smirked at his sarcasm. Some asked him about Earth, others about his tools, and one insisted on examining the legendary weapon he had used against the sentinel, his dented wrench. Alex handed it over reluctantly, watching as they studied it like a relic of divine power. "Careful with that," he warned. "That wrench is the closest thing I have to a retirement plan." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Lyra stood beside him, ears flicking in satisfaction, her smile brighter than he had yet seen. Days passed aboard the mothership, and Alex found himself drawn deeper into the tribe's culture. Meals were shared in vast halls where fruit glowed faintly and sang in soft notes when bitten. Rituals unfolded in patterns of movement and sound, warriors weaving dances that mirrored star systems in motion. Alex, of course, tried to join once, tripped over his own boots, and became the centerpiece of hilarity for the evening. "Your feet betray you," one warrior teased. "They've been betraying me since birth," Alex shot back, earning another wave of laughter. Despite the comedy, he began to understand their values. Loyalty was currency, gratitude a sacred bond. When Lyra had gone missing, their world had trembled on the edge of war. His choice to save her had tipped the balance. They didn't see him as a hero, they saw him as a thread now tied into their tapestry, whether he liked it or not. The council convened again, this time less like judges and more like hosts. The leader addressed him directly. "Your actions altered our fate. Some demand you be honored." Others suggest you must prove your place further. A few, she paused, ears twitching, believe marriage would settle the matter. Alex choked on the luminous drink in his hand. Marriage? I don't even have a plant that survived more than a week under my care, and you're suggesting matrimony with an entire alien culture watching? Several warriors laughed outright. Lyra's cheeks glowed faintly as she rolled her eyes. Ignore them. They joke. They'd better, Alex muttered. I don't even know what the in-laws look like in this scenario. But beneath the humor, he felt the weight of it. He had been a drifter, a mechanic patching up junk for scraps, convinced his life would always orbit failure. Now he stood at the center of something larger, not because he'd sought it, but because he had chosen compassion in a moment when it mattered. In private, Lyra approached him. You changed things. Not just for me. For them. He scratched his head. Pretty sure all I did was feed you terrible rations, stop you from chewing my boots, and wave a wrench at a death drone. She shook her head. You reminded me, that even small acts matter. That kindness is not weakness. Alex felt something shift inside him then. The sarcasm was still there, the joke still ready on his tongue, but for once he didn't hide behind them. Well, I'll take that. Better than being remembered as the guy who tripped during your star dance. She laughed, soft and genuine. When the day came to decide his fate, the council reached their conclusion with surprising unity. The human is free, the leader announced. But not forgotten. He is bound to us by thread of choice. Wherever he travels, he carries our mark. Alex frowned. Mark? Wait, does this involve tattoos? Because I bruise like a peach. Instead, they presented him with a shard of living crystal, pulsing faintly in his hand. Lyra explained, it will respond to you. A link between worlds. A reminder of what you've done. He stared at it, feeling the hum of energy against his palm. For the first time in years, he felt like he carried something that wasn't just weight, but meaning. When he finally returned to his hauler, the desert still waiting below, Lyra walked with him to the ramp. She hesitated, ears twitching, then said simply, not goodbye. Paths cross again. Alex smirked. Good. Somebody has to keep you from eating footwear. Her laughter followed him as he boarded, a sound brighter than any engine hum. As the hauler lifted off, patched and humming with new life, Alex looked at the crystal shard glowing softly on his console. He had gone from a mechanic stranded in the dust to a man tangled in interstellar destiny. And somehow, he had survived it with nothing more than stubbornness, sarcasm, and a wrench. For once, that felt like enough.